So first off, I'll just preface this. While it's safe to assume that if you're attempting to run RBO, you probably have at least a semi-decent understanding of Ridley, I'm still going to go over some of the more basic stuff. Okay. Before we move on to anything else. So like we talked about last time, you want to make sure you get a good farm. So you want to grab health around the time that Samus's health drops to 60. Okay. And then immediately switch into a Crystal Flash. Obviously, since you are on grapple, that is it's quite a few item select presses. I eventually just kind of muscle memoried it, but let's see. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 presses. And then quickly press down to morph and then do the Crystal Flash. Anyway, so like I mentioned, the lower you can farm these bugs, the better off you're going to be, because not only is it faster, but you'll end up with more health by the time you get into Ridley's room. Just make sure that you don't try to farm them too quickly and let them basically miss and let them fly up, because that can be bad. So I like to practice Ridley for RBO, specifically with a room entry of 600 health. 620 is realistic with average, somewhere between average and good RNG. But yeah. Okay, so like I mentioned, we need to cover some Ridley basics first. Let's just start off with the beginning of the fight. So obviously you drop down. We're just going to give ourselves resources here to make this part of the explanation easier. At the beginning of the fight, Ridley's going to appear, he's going to scream, he's going to fly up. He flies up to the top left corner. See that? And then if you don't do anything during this entire sequence, he will always come down for a pogo. Okay? Every single time. The only way that that's going to change is if you are basically above his hitbox. Sometimes he'll change his pattern. Or for example, like with Behemoth's opening strat. Let's see, how does that work? He like jumps up here and does a shot down, and then he like jumps up with him and shoots. Anyway, yeah, so see how he's kind of like flying around the room, but he's still gonna go into a pogo, right? So yeah, the beginning of the fight, Ridley is basically always going to come down for a pogo. Now, pogo pattern, at least in terms of a casual Ridley fight, it's really exactly what you want. And the nice thing is that Ridley won't start his swoop patterns until he's lost a certain amount of health. I forget exactly how much it is. Maybe John remembers, because John knows everything about this game. But yeah. So what I'm doing here, if you pay attention, I'm rolling under Ridley's tail behind him, and then I'm doing a spin jump up until I'm about midway with where Ridley is positioned. And what that makes him do, if you break your spin jump around the middle of his hitbox, or kind of near like the base of his tail, I guess. It's more of what I'm paying attention to, but it makes him turn around. Every time you make Ridley turn around in a pogo, he's starting a new pogo phase, which consists of basically a pogo in each direction. But if you do it so that he's coming over this way to the left, even though it's technically starting a new phase, I think when he finishes on the left side here is when his AI decides whether he wants to keep pogoing or not. So to get a full new phase of pogo, you have to do it this way and then come back over this way. All right. Hang on one second. Anyway, okay, so pogos. So yeah, if you spin jump up behind him and then break your spin, I personally press R to do that. That will manipulate him to turn around and continue the pogo pattern. You can also do it by shooting, or by aiming up, or by aiming down, pushing L instead of R. Basically whatever is comfortable for you. The idea is just to make sure that you're doing a spin jump behind him until you're about centered with his hitbox. And yeah, breaking the spin. Okay, so once he starts his swoop patterns, should be enough. Things will change a little bit. Depending on what side he decides to end his pogo and go up for a swoop, because sometimes he will end it over here on the right side if you do the manipulation wrong or something. He flies up to a corner of the room and then he swoops in a U, okay? So if he does it from this left side, he's gonna fly up to the right, top right corner, and then he'll swoop down in a U pattern, go up to the left. So yeah, he flies up to the right, he comes down in a U up to the left, then he'll try to come down and grab you, unless you do further manipulation. Okay, and then he'll fly back up to the top, and he'll decide what his next AI phase is going to be. Okay, so he either swoops or he goes back into a pogo. Okay, so here's a swoop. He's gonna go back up to the right. He tries to grab. He flies back up to the top corner. He decides he wants to do another swoop. He comes down, top corner, comes down for a grab, goes back up, decides he wants to keep swooping. Does that make sense? So basically, he flies in a U, and then he attempts a grab, and then his AI basically like rolls the dice and decides, okay, do I want to keep swooping or do I want to do a pogo? And then he either swoops again or he goes down and does a pogo. Okay. That is Ridley in a nutshell. That's a great comment, Outlaw, and I will talk about that actually. Yeah. So those are the two basic patterns that Ridley does, and having an understanding of those patterns and how he's going to act in relation to them, and when he may switch patterns is going to help you with the Ridley fight in general a lot. So first we'll go over swoops. Basically with a swoop, you want to be getting as many charge shots into him as possible while he's swooping, okay? That's not going to happen without you just doing the fight a lot and kind of getting a feel for how he's going to move, when, why, etc. But what I can do is kind of go over some basic stuff. So if he ends up pogo and goes up to the right here, what I do is I start a charge, and I shoot him up in the top like that. Then I continue my charge, and I do a wall jump on the left here, okay? Now normally I'd be getting up here faster, but yeah. So you jump over him like that, and then you can turn around and do another shot. Then he'll come down for the grab, so you can anticipate him coming down for the grab. and shoot upwards like this. Run out of the way. Wait for him to go back up. If you don't see/hear the screen shake when he goes back up into the corner, you know that he's gonna do another swoop. Because if he makes it up to the corner and then decides to pogo, what's going to happen is he's going to pogo off of the wall first, basically. So the room will shake, and you'll hear him hit the wall. He's not doing it right now, but yeah. Once he starts pogoing, it's just a matter of deciding how you want to handle the manipulation, like how often you want to do it. For RBO, I only do it on the right side. And the reason for that, I should probably talk about this. On the left side, right here, you're safe. He can't grab you, okay? However, on the right side, we can get him to pogo again. Okay, on the right side right here, he will grab you or bonk into you. So you don't want to try and stand on the edge over on the right side. You only want to do it on the left side right here. Okay. There are certain patterns that Ridley will exhibit, and if you avoid them in a specific way, it will make his tail wig out. Let me see if I can think of a way to show that. Because you can make it happen consistently if you know basically what it is that you need to do to make him wig out. Man, no dice. Oh well. If and when it happens, I'll show it. So yeah, once the fight ends, Ridley is kind of an interesting creature. So see, he has 500 health left right now. Now he's dead, but he's still doing stuff, right? Ridley will not end the fight until one of two things happens. Either he grabs you, or he has a timer that is decreasing, and when that hits 0, then he will explode. I don't know if he'll ever explode in a pogo. There we go. Okay, so he just tried to grab. He's trying to grab again. Man. There we go. Now he's exploding. Okay. Now, you saw how long that took. Hey, Tixie, what's up, man? If you wait for Ridley to explode on his own, he's gonna take forever. Most of the time. There are ways to manipulate that. Like you can do like a bomb jump thing. But the risk with the bomb jump is just that sometimes he'll like shoot fireballs at you and hit you. You can also do like this weird, basically you do a spin jump and immediately break it and fly up and get in front of him. Sometimes that will make him explode if you do it correctly. It's not exactly a task strat, but it's not 100% consistent for humans either. So usually what you want to do, and the only thing you will ever want to do in RBO, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, is you want to make sure that you're getting grabbed by him. There are a couple things that you can do to make this happen. If he's pogoing, you can jump into his claws. Let me see if I can make him pogo again. Okay, so he's pogoing, right? You want to jump into his claws near the peak of his pogo. This seems like it would be hard, but it's really not that bad. The only thing to keep in mind is that his pogos are varying heights. Sometimes he'll do them shorter, sometimes he'll do them higher. That's based on RNG, so you'll need to watch out for that. But the idea is basically just that you want to jump up with him. I find it easiest if you're facing away from him, you're holding an angle. Thank you, Tixie. You're holding an angle, and then you like turn into his claw, okay? So, like this. You see that? It's really, like, it's not hard to do at all. The only thing is making sure that you time it correctly, and all that is basically when you see his tail hit the platform, you jump up after him, and that's it. If you try to do it as he's coming down, let's see if I can do this, you can kind of get screwed. So that can happen, right? And obviously you don't want that. Because he's not dying and you take damage. So just make sure that you're doing it either on his way up or at the peak of his pogo. If you do it at the peak, he's going to fly to the center of the room and explode faster than if you do it, like, say, on his way up. The reason for this is, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but basically, when Ridley grabs you, he immediately flies to the center of the room based on, like, a current speed value that he has, okay? So for whatever reason, that speed value is most optimal if you get in his claws at the peak of his jump. And that's pretty important to note for RBO because it changes the way that health management is when you get to that point. And again, we'll cover that specifically in a little while. I'm probably going to break this this Ridley stuff into 2 segments. I'm going to do it all today. But for example, like with my editing and stuff, I'll probably break it into 2 segments. Okay. If you wait too long to come up after him when he pogos, he'll do this thing sometimes where he just flies away from you. See that? And that can mean certain death in RBO. In other categories, it usually just is annoying. But basically, if you have the opportunity to jump into his claw earlier, you want to do it earlier to try and avoid this. You don't have to hold angle, by the way, when you're jumping into his claw. You can just do it straight, like this. I hold angle to prevent myself from accidentally doing a spin jump, because he cannot grab you when you're in spin jump, okay? It doesn't matter if you're in screw attack. He can't grab you for the finish when you're in spin jump, as far as I'm aware. So, keep that in mind. Next thing we'll talk about is getting grabbed from a swoop. And in order to show that, I think I actually need to reset the fight, so we'll just reset the fight. Okay. So, now he's in swoop formation. He will only grab you from a swoop either during... Oh, there we go. Either during his normal grab phase in the swoop, or if you're lucky and you kill him before he decides to change his AI, and he goes back up for a swoop, which he did in that time, then he'll come back down and grab you. Okay? I don't know exactly where the point of that is. Like how high he can be before it's just rip. See, like that didn't work, right? But it is possible to do it if you kill him early enough before he goes back up to do the AI roll again. You also can jump into his claw if he's ready to grab you, like that. Okay, but optimally, what you want to do is stand kind of in the middle of the room right here, And what will happen is he'll come down to do his grab on you, and then he'll just explode immediately. And that can save a good couple seconds, really. So like let's do it over here on the left side. See how he like decides to fly around the room for a second before he's exploding. So you want to try and get grabbed like in the middle of the room during a normal grab phase, if that's at all possible. Okay, if he's on the right side, it's the same kind of thing. Okay, so he decided to swoop up to the right there, right? You can still do the quick grab. It's a little bit different positioning. And the other thing is that if he's coming down from the right side, sometimes his tail will be a douche and like whack you before you actually get grabbed. So because of that, some people like to morph on the right side, just because it makes Samus's hitbox smaller, and so it can decrease the chance of the tail whipping you. But see, in this particular instance, I actually don't get whipped if I'm standing, and I do if I'm in morph. So I don't personally do the morph thing. Okay. So before I move on to the RBO side of Ridley, I would like to open the floor for questions. Okay, so yeah. Again, if he's in a pogo and you go above his halfway, he will change his AI. Basically, it'll roll and he'll be like, okay, what do I want to do now? Really, like, the chances of him staying in a pogo are pretty likely. But it just kind of makes him go crazy. So you want to avoid jumping too high when he's in a pogo pattern. Oh, one more thing. It's not 100% consistent by any means, but you can kind of manipulate Ridley in a pogo if you like angle, or sorry, in a swoop if you angle at the right time. As he's flying back up into a corner, even during a grab phase. So see, that time he tried to grab me, but see that? He normally would have come down to grab me, but since I did a spin jump up high like that and broke spin up there, he did decide to come back down and do a pogo instead. So anyway, that's just another little piece of information, just kind of a tool for your use. It's not consistent necessarily, but it does work sometimes. Yeah, the main thing with Ridley, seriously, and this applies for any category, any strat, however you're going to approach Ridley, the main thing with Ridley to get good at him is just to fight him over and over and over and over and over. Eventually, you'll be able to predict kind of like what he's likely to do next. And even if he doesn't do that thing, you'll know how to handle whatever he does, you know? So if he decides to swoop instead of pogo, you'll know usually like how long it'll take him to come back down, etc., etc. So